Hey everybody, welcome to episode 23 of Making It, a podcast about making stuff with your bare hands. I'm Bob Clagett, here with Jimmy Diresta and David Picciuto. How you guys doing?
Very good. Very good.
What's up?
Good. Happy to say that this episode is sponsored by Inventables. I want to thank them for sponsoring this. In case you don't know about Inventables, they're an awesome site, awesome company, but they have an awesome site where you can buy like basically any material that you're looking for. They have a crazy variety of stuff. Woods and plastics, but also like soft metals. They have aluminum. They have all these weird conductive materials like fabric and just all sorts of crazy stuff that you can use to make your projects even cooler. Of course, they also make the X-Carve, which is a CNC machine, a 3D carving machine, they like to call it. Inventables is an awesome company. We've all worked with them separately, and we're really, really happy to have them on board sponsoring the show. So if you're not familiar with them, go to inventables.com, check them out. And thanks to Inventables.
Good people. Good peoples.
Yeah. What's everybody working on? David.
Speaking of Inventables, literally just minutes ago, I put out a video on making an end grain cutting board. And
nice.
I'm using the Inventables X-Carve to carve out the inlay, and then I fill that with colored epoxy. And came out pretty good. I think we talked about it before, where I tried this a couple weeks ago, and the epoxy did not cure because it didn't mix well with the food coloring. And so this time around, they put a little bit more hardener in the mix and then used a heat gun, and that seemed to work fine. So
very good.
So there was no way to salvage the first one? It just never hardened?
It never hardened. After 2.5 weeks, it was
Did you
tacky.
sweep it out?
Yeah.
You just swept it out?
Yeah. So I kind of have a beef with end grain cutting boards, though, as like you only see woodworkers with end grain cutting boards, right? Like I'm on all these different chef sites, like looking at things, and they're all using long grain cutting boards. The only people
end grain cutting boards are illegal in food prep.
They're illegal
because
in food
they
prep.
hold.
Oh,
yeah. Well, I should say illegal as if it's like we're talking about cocaine. It's not used anymore because it's a health violation. As far as I know, I remember I was walking by a restaurant and they put out an end grain cutting board, like an end grain cutting block, and they're like, "Yeah, we can't use this anymore. The health inspector won't pass it because." And I'm talking like 20 years ago. I learned this. Bits of food particles stay stuck in the end grain, so that's why like a big restaurant won't use it anymore.
Huh? I did not know that.
FYI.
Yeah, because I'm like, because it just appeared to me like nobody cares about end grain cutting boards except woodworkers. But
Ain't that the truth, man?
And Bob, maybe you can speak to this as well. But I've put out long grain cutting boards videos in the past, and you get all these comments saying, "Oh, you're going to ruin your knives and blah 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 and whatever," right? So,
yep.
but
it's
I made
metal.
one.
It's metal on wood.
It's
I
metal
mean, come on,
wood, right? But I made an end grain cutting board. Whether it's better for your knives or not, it looks cool because it's kind of like the randomized repeating pattern, if that makes sense. So
it's bad for your knives. What's bad for your knives? Using them.
Yeah. Speaking of knives, what have you been working on, Jimmy?
I put out my knife video
Nice.
this week to celebrate my 200,000 subscribers. Thank you. And by the way, everybody, Bob Clagett beat me to that deadline. So, Bob, congratulations. I don't know where he's buying his subs from. I wish I knew.
I'll never tell.
No, Bob, you're amazing how fast you're growing. Congratulations. And so I did my knife video, and that was fun. We were just talking about how I kind of fumbled my way through it, and I just literally chopped it up. Millions of little ums and ahs I cut out of it. But I'm happy with the way it came out, and I try to get through that collection as fast as possible because that video could have been an hour long. And I want to officially apologize for putting out a video of me mowing my lawn. I wanted to say I'm sorry I did that.
Never apologize.
I'll never do it again.
Never apologize.
I'm just kidding.
The funny thing today, I
I
posted a thing asking, like I was building something in my shop, and I said, "This is pretty small. I don't know if it's really worth making a video about." And 2 or 3 of the comments were, Diresta just put out a video of himself mowing the lawn. So yes, you should put out a video.
I got to mow the lawn after this podcast. Maybe I should make a response video to that.
Hey, you know what? Blame my 2 YouTube heroes, Matthias and Casey, because Casey always goes to his house in Connecticut and mows his lawn and videotapes it. And Matthias, I basically mirrored exactly what he did. His like walking through the grass and then cutting it out. I just wanted to experiment with time lapse, and I'm really getting attracted to the idea of doing time lapse in my with my big expansive country view, and I just wanted something interesting to happen in the time lapse. So I mowed the lawn and I sat on the video for a couple days, and I was like, you know what, let me just kind of throw it out there because it wasn't like a full official release in quotes, on a Sunday, which is where I try to put out my good stuff. I just threw it out there in the middle of the week, and I got really mixed reviews. It's just funny how, you get stuck in a rut. Well, I put rut as a metaphor for, your style, and people get mad when you go outside the lines. It's crazy.
Yeah, it happens. But I have to say, I actually, when I saw the title for it, I was like, haha, he's messing with people. But then when I actually really enjoyed watching it, because I don't know, it was really pretty. And that area up there is beautiful. So I don't know, it was nice to watch personally. I mean,
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I kind of haven't revealed any of that, but only because I shoot most of my videos in New York, and I was like, God, this is like getting outside the shop for a minute. And I do have videos coming up where I'll be working outside up there. I'm going to be working on the bed of this truck concept. That's why you notice I bought that vintage truck, which I'll pick up this weekend, and I'm going to turn that into a set of shelves for one of my brands. And so I'll be doing that outside. And so it was fun. It was fun to make the video. It's not monetized because I used the Chet Baker song. So I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully they don't shut the song off. But the video itself is not monetized because hopefully they'll just put like a little iTunes link to the song. I don't know how that happens. If you guys have any insight on?
Yeah, what they'll probably do is they'll put AdSense ads on there, but then that revenue goes to the owner of or who owns the rights to the music.
Oh, I think Columbia Records maybe. Oh, cool. Oh, yeah. It's just the Chet Baker song that I loved.
Yeah.
And it just seemed to go. It seemed to fit with the. And I actually cut it to the actual length of the song, so it's 3 minutes exactly.
Yeah. So I had a video, and I used a portion of a Ghetto Boys song in there, and I got a letter saying you can't do that. So the money from this video is going to whoever the record label was or whatever. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, like I said, I tried it. I'm pretty sure AdSense is turned off. I checked it a couple times. It seems like no ads are popping up. YouTube has made like the interface. They change it every couple days. So the AdSense interface is not quite as easy as it used to be. There literally used to be like a light switch. Ads on, ads off. And now there's this whole cryptic check all these boxes to check the agreement, uncheck the agreement. So I don't know. I was afraid I was turning ads off my whole channel. I didn't know what was going to happen. But besides that, and then hopefully tonight I'll finish up the video. I'm working on a bar cart, which will hopefully be ready for Sunday. And then I'm also working on a little compact case with molded leather. And that's all done through the CNC machine. So just experimenting with making the parts on a CNC machine for a little leather compact case. So that's nice. Coming up.
I think I saw a little teaser on Facebook.
Yeah, I was so happy I was able to make the frame. The frame was sort of a little challenge for me. I made it yesterday and it didn't work out well. So overnight, sleeping on it, I literally was sleeping on it. And I came up this morning with the concept of the better way to do it. So I went in early, designed it in my software, and was able to cut it out perfectly first shot. So
cool.
Got me back on track.
So last week I skipped over Bob and interrupted him. So he didn't get to say what he was working on. So I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Gotcha. Well, I put out a video yesterday of a sandbox and a planner combo that I made. I actually made that a couple weeks ago. We had a little raised sandbox in our backyard for our kids to play in, and it was just, old and falling apart. So made one, and the planner is raised up above the sandbox, and it's working out really well so far. We put a little water thing on the side of it so the kids can, get buckets of water for the sandbox, and then we have them using that water to water the plants in the planter as well. So they're kind of invested trying to keep the sand out of it because they want to see the plants survive. That was kind of our way to make that happen. But then the thing that I posted about on Instagram this morning was last night I stayed up and I've had this computer I wanted to get in the shop so that I could do the CNC work all in the shop and not have to like run back and forth between the office and the shop. And so I ended up making a really simple wooden, like a monitor arm. So the monitor is mounted on the wall, but it swings out and can pivot, in almost 180 degrees. So you can kind of aim it wherever you want in the shop. So spent way too much time last night thinking about how to do that. And then after, an hour, I was like, oh, this is really actually like 5 minutes of work. So I did that, and it works great. So that's why I'm not sure if it's worth putting out as a video, but people seem to want to see it. So I'll probably start on that.
Yes.
Today.
I want to see it.
Cool. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
Nice.
Hey, your backyard reminded me of my grandmother's house in Florida. Your backyard with the sand. When I was a kid, I used to always love to go to my grandma's house in Florida, and I was always looking for lizards. Do you have lizards in your yard?
All over the place.
You do, right? Yeah, it's just like my grandmother with like the wrought iron thing holding the porch up.
See, we don't have lizards where we live, so when I'm down south and you see them, it's exciting. But you don't sound too excited about your lizards.
Oh no, I mean I think they're cool. I'm just used to them, you know. But
yeah, it's like when you come to New York, you see roaches.
Oh, we have roaches too. Well, I mean, growing up in Kentucky, you know, we didn't have anything like that. So, and I worked at a pet store for just a couple of days one time, and that was the coolest thing because there were these lizards. Like, oh man, I could like buy these lizards, you know, and have them as pets. And then down here, they're just like they creep in the windows and they're all over, and they're cool, and the kids love them and stuff. But you know, it's just not. They're not hard to come by anymore.
Yeah.
And since the weather's gotten so nice. Snakes are out, and so like I see snakes in the yard, all like tiny little ones, and lizards, and we have these gigantic cockroaches down here. Oh, palmetto bugs is what they call them, and they're you know a good 2 inches long kind of deal. They're all over the place. So yeah, the South has its own wildlife.
We just have ants.
Oh, you got where in Ohio?
Yeah, we have tons and tons of ants this year. I don't know what the deal is, but ants are everywhere. They're in the house, outside the house, just everywhere.
They're running away from all the lizards down here. They're coming up north.
Yeah.
That's probably
that reminds me. Did you guys ever see? I know. So I'll introduce the topic in a second. But did you ever see the guy who pours molten lead into anthills? Have you seen that?
Yes.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't seen that, check that out. Check that out.
I'll have to put a link to that in the show notes. It's pretty awesome.
So I'm going to introduce the topic. We're going to talk today a little bit about how each one of us develops our own style and what led up to the personal style, or either in videos or in our handmade life and the things that we do for a living and the things we make and maybe even the things we wear. Style is style. I mean, it all goes into it. I think, you know, maybe if you guys want to talk about the cars we drive, you know, just like altogether lifestyle is another. You know, broader version of that whole topic. There was a time when I thought I was like Eurotrash, and I had a Mercedes Benz, and I used to always dress, and I try to dress in nice clothes. And then the more you guys will probably laugh at this, but as I got older and older, I found myself, you know, kind of being a tradesman, like moving air conditioners and carrying stuff, and then I realized the Mercedes was just not only a waste of money because it's just so expensive to fix. Then I just started getting like a pickup truck, and that's all. And then from that on, I just always had a pickup truck. And so I basically became like a city farm boy. And the things I do, the things I buy are all practical. So when I think in terms of like what's my personal style, it's practical. When I make things, I think of a practical approach. You know, when I go buy clothes, I just buy practical clothes. You know, things that could be nice in air quotes, and then that I could, you know, wear in the shop because I ruin everything eventually wear. So just if I had to label my own personal style, I would just say basically practical, and that really is the practical. Practicality is really my approach to design. Just simple. I try to do simple, clean lines. You know, I follow some of these guys on Instagram that do these very elaborate, intricate carvings. Did you guys see this video that's been going around of a guy who carves in wax this beautiful, ornate mirror frame?
No.
And in the frame, he puts like an image of his artwork. It's three. It's like a triptych. It's 3 circles. Somebody put it on my Facebook page, but. This guy just did incredible, like French Baroque styling, like it would all be gilded gold. I see that, and I kind of wish I could do that, but I don't think I could do that. It's just not me. You know, it's not in me to do that. It would be so labor intensive for me to try and do that. So I always just try and take a practical, clean line approach when it comes to making stuff. I don't know. I'm going to open it up to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's very. Most of my stuff is very utilitarian, you know, it's very get to the point, function first, form second. While I appreciate both, I think the physical stuff that I make is always more based out of function. What were you going to say, David?
I was just going to say, I think my style all stems from music, whether it's my
that's great.
video style or my making style or what I wear. Like, I've just always been into music, whether it was like late 80s, like hair metal, or 90s grunge, or the 2000s, like indie rock. My style is developed and all come out of that. So even I'm going to be 40 here soon, but even at my age, it still influences what I wear, what I watch.
That's funny.
And what I make.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I wasn't really aware of what I was talking about just a second ago, in the idea that I have the same experience. Because if you see all my early guitars, I made most of my guitars in the 90s. They're all total heavy metal influence. And, I made a lot of skulls in my life. I made a lot of, a lot of my knives and all that. That's all definitely heavy metal inspired. And, that whole, like skull ring jewelry and all that kind of stuff. That's definitely all from rock and roll. That's funny. I wasn't even aware of it till you just kind of highlighted that. It's funny. But as I got older and the things I started making for my clients, I love rustic stuff for a practical reason, because because I actually really, honestly, am attracted to it, and B, it's easier to make than, super fine, easy to clean, easy, super clean woodwork. And, a lot of, it's sort of the style now. A lot of people want rustic, and, you could charge a lot of money for the same thing that would be, all dovetails and fine joinery. Or you could just make a steel frame and put old wood in it, and you can get the same amount of money because that's what people like. So that whole farmhouse aesthetic and, country aesthetic is another part of my existence. And like I said, I'm personally attracted to it because we're constantly styling the house. That house in that video, we rent it. So every week we have renters there, and that's why I have to keep the lawn up and make sure the inside of the house is well kept. And I also like to try and keep it interesting. So, as far as aesthetic goes, I'm always looking for antique, old, rust. It's another element that I'm always looking for, is rusty things. I tweeted a picture of this old car I just bought. I said it's my new favorite rusty object. I bought a 1972 Chevy C10 that I'm going to use for a project, and it's completely rusty. Like, there's parts of it you could just poke your finger right through it, and I love it for that. When I saw it, I got out of the car and I walked up to it, and I was like, couldn't stop smiling. I was thinking to myself, I wish there was a camera on me right now. I was just walking all around it smiling. And the guy I bought the car from, he comes out and he lights a cigarette, and he's just looking at me like he's like, "You like it?" I go, "I love it." And he was like, I wasn't a tire kicker or anything. I just kept taking pictures of the surface of the car. He's like, "What's wrong with you? What are you going to do with this thing?"
That's awesome.
I go, "Well, I'm not going to actually really use it as a car." And he laughed. He goes, "What, are you going to make it into a flower pot?" I said, "Kinda." I said, "I'm going to use the back as a flower pot and maybe use the front as a lawn ornament." I'm not sure.
Nice.
So
I mean, yeah.
I think what makes this podcast work is we all have different styles in the way we approach everything in our lives. So my question for you guys, how important is being unique to your style?
Well, let me back up. I'll get to that.
Okay.
So, and because it kind of plays into that, I realized several years ago, growing up, I never had a specific style, and I would always move from thing to thing based on like what was in my head. There was one point when a certain type of clothing was popular, and I really liked the way something looked. And so I would try to kind of rearrange my whole look and my whole aesthetic and everything toward that style. And then at some point, pretty soon after that, there would be another thing. And I would think, oh, actually, I think I'm a little more of that. And I would move that direction. And, which is pretty stupid when you're a kid and you don't actually have money to buy your own clothes. And you think that you have to like rearrange, your wardrobe or your whatever to be a certain thing. And so I bounced around growing up between a lot of those things as my interests would shift. And then in college, I realized that I figured that out. And then I realized that white t-shirts and brown pants or jeans were the medium of everything else that I liked. They were the very center point of skate clothes, and they were the center point of rock clothes, and they were the center point of, whatever these styles were that were out there. A white t-shirt or a single color t-shirt and jeans was like right in the middle, and it would never go out of style. It was like the medium.
Jimmy standing up, showing off his white T-shirt and blue jeans, which is hilarious.
Camo hat.
And a camo hat. But even the camo, that has a specific, like an angle to it. And anyway, I figured out at some point that, that there were like these kind of mediums that would always work. And so I went through most of college, like being like, okay, I finally found my thing. It's the medium of all the stuff that I like. And so here's my personal style. It's developed in a very like gray, blue, solid color. There's just the stuff I kind of settled into. And so I figured that out a long time ago. But then I realized as I started doing more hands-on stuff and making stuff that same idea of liking all these different varied extreme things on occasion was me, but everything always came back to this medium. And so that's kind of part of how I like to make stuff was actually made, because I found that I had a center point that I could reach out and make this extreme choice over here, or this certain type of very specific thing right here one time, and then I could be done with it and I could come back to the medium, come back to the center. And so that idea has, informed both my personal style and the style that I use for the things that I make and the videos that I make. What was your original question?
Well, how important is being unique to your style?
Unique. Yeah. So to me, the uniqueness is not overall unique. This is like for me personally. I don't think I'm unique as my medium, as that like center point, but I get the chance to go out and do these unique things in one direction, and make a certain thing that's very unique and very out in a particular direction for a little while, and then I can come back and I can go back to woodwork, or I can go back to whatever that's a little more common. So for me, it's not really important to be unique. It's an opportunity that I take advantage of sometimes. Does that make sense?
Like that. Yeah, absolutely. I try. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh yeah, no, because you go and then I'll go.
I was gonna say I try very hard to be unique, but that's really hard. There's thousands and thousands of people making YouTube videos, right? And I think the uniqueness comes from actually copying styles until you develop your own. So if you find an artist or whatever, what I think a lot of times what happens is if you try to copy that artist exactly, you'll notice that that's a little hard to do, and your own style will develop out of that.
Yeah, so I was going to say basically the same thing. It's important for me to try and be different, just because I'm a little bit of an egomaniac, and some of my commenters say that.
I like that about you.
No, thank you. Honestly, I just try and stand out, because I noticed I've been in and around friends that are a little shy, and I talked about James Victori's his YouTube channel last week, and he talks a little bit about being, open and out in front. And so I always, whenever I'm working on a video or when I'm going to make a presentation, I always try and have one little sort of like left turn in it, just so people will remember that little dumb thing. And like, for instance, I'm making this bar cart, and it's not completely brand new, but one of the elements of the bar cart is an S wrench, and I cut the S wrench in half, and I have basically the same exact shape on both sides, so that becomes the handrail for the bar cart, the push handrail. And when I was like, I needed that one thing. Because I couldn't find, like, I wasn't just going to I didn't want to just weld like a handle on it, a push handle. I wanted something interesting to hold that handle. And, I have a million wrenches around the shop. So I was like, let me try and do that. So I found this S wrench in the drawer, and I was like, oh, let me do that. So little things like that, like, that's not altogether 100% original, but little things like that, like, the willingness to cut up a wrench. And, I got over this a long time ago, but it seems to get people excited. The idea of wearing, a $4,000 watch in the shop every day, which I didn't pay for, so I don't care. That type of stuff makes you stand out a little bit. It makes people say, oh, the guy that's wearing the watch in the videos, and the reason I continue to wear the same watch is because just most often people see my hands. They don't always see my face. So, so it's just one little thing that identifies who this video is from. And, the fact that my name is in every single shot. And that just came from when someone stole a video once and they clipped the credits off it. And that annoyed me. I'm like, so from now on, if anybody steals even just a piece of a video for something else, it'll be branded. And that's the main reason for that nowadays. But I'm always looking for that one thing that's going to make me stand out. And I always use this as an example. When I was a student, I learned this from one of my teachers. In fact, she's basically said, always your presentation is really important. And I might have said this on the show before, I don't know, but it's an applicable example right now. I remember there was a time when we had a show. Every time we showed work in class, we all went up to the wall and stuck it on the wall, either with push pins or with tape. And I knew from the ritual of doing that everyone's always scavenging for a piece of tape or this is like in a graphic design class. So I made my presentation board have thumbtacks glued to the back. So when I walked up, I literally just stuck it on the wall and sat back down. And everybody in the class is still at the wall looking for a piece of tape. And the teacher saw me walk up, slap it on the wall and sit back down. And she talked about me for 10 minutes. This was, 1985. She's like, that's a great presentation. And I said, I learned it from you, so thank you. But the idea of being able to and so she talked for 10 minutes about how I put the work up and not about the work. And that she thought it was cool. So there's little things like that little moment in time stuck with me. I mean, I wasn't really as conscious about it at the moment as I am now. So that little lesson I learned was, okay, if I'm going to go into a meeting with a group of people, how can I be the one that they remember? Every time I've been in class, I always sat directly in front of the teacher. And that only stemmed out of me not being able to hear very well. But then it just basically became, I want to engage. I'm here to pay for this class. I want to engage most importantly with this person. So I always sat right in front. So when I talk about my personal style and trying to be unique, I definitely strive to stand out from the pack. And, initially I didn't talk in any of my videos, and that really just came out of the idea of not wanting to edit sound. But then that has become my trademark, at least, initially. Now it's kind of getting watered down, which is totally fine. I mean, I didn't own the idea of being silent movie. Silent movie came before me, and fast movies came before me too. So I just put them all together and just packaged 100 of them in a row, and then it becomes yours.
Yeah.
So
as far as uniqueness too, so I asked people on Twitter the other day for some show ideas. And one of the things I think could be its own whole topic, but it's relevant here to what we're talking about. And he said, I think it was Colby. I'm not exactly sure, but he said how to not feel like a copycat and get discouraged on YouTube. And so you were talking about being unique. I've thought about that a lot, and we may have talked about this before. If so, just stop me. But, there have been a few things that I wanted to make that somebody else made. And, I ended up not making the same video or not making the same project because I was worried about it being the same video. And when I mentioned that to people, a lot of people, their response was, it doesn't matter if you're doing the same thing. I like the way you explain whatever versus the way someone else would explain it. And so I think, it's easy for us to when we think about how important uniqueness is, it's easy for us to look at the project and think, is it important for the project to be unique? And we use that as the value point for whether we should do the project. But what we should probably look at is how is my presentation of that project going to be unique? I'm not the first person to make a bed. I'm not the first person to make a sandbox. But if I can find a way to personally talk about it, present or teach something that is unique about that process, then it has value. It will have value to somebody. So to whoever mentioned that, think less about the project, and think more about you being the unique thing, not the thing that you're making.
That's a really good point. That's a great point because, everybody has their own audience and, everybody's got their own loyal followers. I have people that watch me and like me, and all of us, we seem to have a lot of the same audience. But there are people that tell me about things and I never saw it, and I go and see it. And, there's somebody doing the same thing as 5 other people, but because it's their own unique approach to it, I sit and I watch and I'm curious. So, each channel, if you talk, in the context of YouTube channels, I agree. Don't be afraid to make something that somebody else made. Just bring your own attitude, style, and honesty to it, and it will definitely stand above. I mean, the good example of that is my pal David Welder, who he stalled on his video startup because he kept saying, it's going to look like yours, it's going to look like yours. I said, you know what, it probably will for a little while, and until you develop. And he's slowly starting to develop a couple of very key shots that I said, these couple of little elements he does in a few of his videos. I go that these little elements are now going to be yours if you keep using them, and he brings a sense of humor to his stuff, which is really something that I don't do as well as him. And he's willing to talk here and there just to make a funny. And so he's totally developing his own style. And the last video he did, which was incredible, was this flat thing that we did for this appearance at BookCon. And I was blown away by the video. I thought he did a really good job. He shot this whole video while I was away. He texted me. He goes, "Hey, if I'm going to make this, can I videotape it?" I was like, "Sure." And he did a great job with it. So you just got to keep doing it, and you develop your own style.
Yeah. And I think that applies outside of YouTube. I mean, again, I've said this before. It's easy for us for the three of us to talk about YouTube because that's where we are. And a lot of the people listening are not doing this from a video production, but they are probably making something, And
for sure.
It doesn't matter if you're making a wine rack out of a pallet like everybody else in the world has done at some point. That's okay, because you are going to make different cuts than I'm going to make and then Jimmy's going to make. And just because you're a different person, the output will be different somehow. So, true. I think even if you're making stuff to sell at a craft show, just continue to do it and you will come through in that thing that you're trying to make, I think.
Yeah. I think like handmade is like a signature. It's like handwriting. Everybody who makes the same, the four of us made the same thing, the three of us or the five of us or whoever made the same thing, they would all be different and the approach would definitely be different.
Which would be a really interesting experiment. Maybe we should do that. The three of us should all independently make the same thing. And then,
chessboard.
See how?
Remember, we're going to do a chessboard.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
We might do that. Well, back to the style thing.
Chopstick. Remember our chopstick project? Talk
Let's
about that another time.
Did we talk about that on air or off air?
No, that was off air.
That was off air. All right. So
that'll be a teaser.
Yes.
Chopsticks. So back to the style thing. So outside of like personal style, what about video style? We talked a little bit before we started recording about like some of the stuff about us that's kind of shaped some of the way we do videos. David, you want to talk about that? What you were saying?
Sure. As far as video style, I'm still trying to develop mine. I go back and forth and play around with different things. It's something I'm kind of struggling with. Like, I think I have my own style, but I'm not quite happy with it yet. Maybe I'll never be happy. I don't know.
Well, we talked about the editing style and like, the differences between the three of us and how we edit, why we edit.
I refuse to do the fast video now because that's what Jimmy does, right? And I don't want to be a copy of Jimmy. So because of that, I know that it's okay. And I know that you didn't come up with that style, but you are now known for that. And we do a podcast together. And so if I did that, people are going to say, "Oh, look, David's doing what Jimmy's doing." So because of that,
can I interrupt there though?
Go ahead.
Let me interrupt because I do that.
Yes.
And I also do a podcast with you two. And no one has ever said to me that I was ripping off his style. Even though I did, I will perfectly honestly admit that when I first got started, I was like, "Oh, I love his videos, but I want to talk over them."
Okay.
So go back.
So so maybe nobody will ever say anything if I actually did do that. But I always play these little mental games and I give myself these limitations. And I think creativity comes out of limiting myself. So now I try to tell the story without doing any fast edits. And so that causes you to do other types of edits, shorter edits, different camera angles or whatever to tell the story. And I think that's where a lot of uniqueness can come from if you limit yourself.
Yeah, give yourself certain parameters. It's like we talked about, creativity that comes out of using one or two tools is very similar. Yeah, as far as video styles go, for the very first time I put out a video with a song. Just the other day, me mowing the lawn, and like I said, it's not monetized or anything.
I noticed that as soon as I heard it, I was like, "Whoa, there's music. That's weird."
Yeah, because I just wanted to there wasn't really. I just wanted to keep this particular video as entertaining as possible. I actually cut it together, and there was no music on it because it's a time lapse. And I was like, "What?" Oh, I put a couple of like sound beds under it of just like ambient noise, and then I went through all the Final Cut sound boxes to see if I could find something that worked, and nothing seemed to work. And I was like, you know what? I know this Chet Baker B flat is the name of the song would work, and I found it, and I put it under it, and it worked. And so I just hope they don't turn it off on me. But beside that, I always used to edit with music, but then when they the licensing right difficulty. I just left it out completely just to avoid any hassles. And I always thought that I would make my own sort of soundtrack with like just tapping like wrenches on top of the steel table or some kind of stupid just beat, like a kind of African inspired beat. And I haven't done that yet, but one of these days I will. But I recently kind of started going back to my original, like I've been making a couple of videos and I noticed I'm like, wow, that's kind of like I did it when I very first started doing it. So I'm kind of going back a little bit, just being completely straightforward, showing exactly what happens. I get a little trickery here and there. And, and by the way, my new style is, everyone's going to say I'm knocking off David Welder because I just got the same exact camera as David Welder. Thank you, David Picciuto. I bought David Picciuto's rig, the Nikon 7100. And this video that I talked about making the leather compact case is all shot with the 7100 with the soft focus lens. So everything's going to be like selective focus. As the CNC's going around, I'm kind of pulling focus on the head of the thing.
Nice.
So
nice.
It's gonna definitely be more along the lines of what David's been doing because David had that camera for so long, David Welder. So I'm looking forward to putting that video out. Hopefully I can get that cut up tonight and it'll go on Make Channel. You'll be able to see it by the time this airs. So I like the practicality of just showing simple things. But now that I have this new rig, the styling is going to be a little bit more like Vimeo style. I always joke, I always think anytime somebody sends me from Vimeo, I'm like, it isn't going to upload. It's going to be overly flashy. It's going to be too mushy. It's going to be soft focus everywhere. And I'm going to be annoyed before I'm entertained or educated. So,
wow.
Am I wrong? Anytime someone sends me a link from Vimeo, it's some over flashy. It's like guys in a wood shop, but produced by a film crew.
They're usually very well produced. Yeah.
Slow motion dust that's catching the light just perfect.
It's like it makes me want to vomit. It's always exactly the same. So, and like the practical stuff that we shoot is stuff that we shoot because we make stuff. But when you see a Vimeo, and I keep saying because Vimeo is like always the stuff that doesn't download on your phone, you can't watch it, you never watch it, and you have dust flying in the opening credits. When you see dust flying in the opening credits, you know it's going to be some schmaltzy, overdone thing, and all the good elements are going to be edited out. Like somebody sent me something about a guy who like hand carves guns. And all I wanted to see was the chisel pushing through the metal. And it's the one thing they didn't show. The guy talked about how he grew up with guns. And I don't care about any of that. I want to see the metal pushing through the knife. They didn't show any of that. They showed the obligatory shot of the dust and the light of the camera and the soft focus in the background and the voiceover and the slow pan. It's like Vimeo should just like erase all the videos and start over. I'm done.
That's funny.
There's no need to keep opinions to yourself on this show.
Yeah, just let it out, man. Let it out.
No, I'm half joking, but I do honestly believe every time someone sends me a link to a Vimeo thing, first when I see Vimeo, I'm like, okay, it's never going to open because it's 65,000 pounds of data that's not going to open on a phone or a computer unless you're actually connected to the building where the internet comes from.
You realize data does not have actual weight, correct?
It doesn't? And I'm going to repeat myself, but you heard my opinion of Vimeo woodwork. I love the subjects. I love the subjects, and the subjects make me thrive for good shots of exactly what's happening. It's what you never see. You see like the light in the background, and you see the grass and the flowers. You never see what they're actually doing.
Well, that's an interesting thing to notice, though, is because the people that are making that type of video are filmmakers. And they're focused on the film. We're makers, and we're focused on the project that we're actually doing and figuring out how to convey that. They're working on how to convey the story of the person who's doing something. We should probably have to go back. We'll probably have to go back and make another episode about how we make our videos, because you just got a new rig. I've gotten a new camera and new lights and a new microphone and all this stuff in the last month or so.
And so have I.
Yeah, so
all three of us have new cameras.
Yeah. So that one's out of date. So pretty soon after we get used to our new equipment, we'll have to go back and, because people actually ask about that a lot, about what we have and what we do, what we use it for and stuff. So maybe we'll come back to that in the future.
I've been saying for at least a year now that I'm going to do a video on my setup, because people can ask about it all the time. I'm like, oh, hang out for a little bit. I'll have a video out in a couple weeks or a blog post. And I never do, because I guess it's just not as interesting to me as maybe to other people. And I try not to put too much focus on the equipment, because you can make a great video with your smartphone, right? So but also I'm a technology nerd. I love that stuff. So
that's funny. I got your package, David. Thank you for giving me that camera. You sold it to me, so I appreciate that. It was exactly what I wanted. I wanted just like a bag with camera equipment in it. I didn't want to have to go through a receipt or anything. I opened it up and I said to Welder, I go, how do I turn this on? He goes, you go like this, you go like this. And I put it on the tripod. I immediately started using it for the video. I just began at that moment. So
awesome.
It was nice. So I used, you gave me an 8 megabyte card. I used that card up, and then I had to go put another card in. So it was, and I found the stickers.
It was an
today.
8-pound card.
Yeah.
8 pounds.
I had to put a 64-pound card I had to put in.
That's awesome.
But I found the stickers today. Thank you. You gave me.
Oh yeah, they were hidden in there.
Yeah, I found them.
Nice.
That's funny.
Yep. I'm thinking about getting a 128-pound card. That's expensive.
That's probably a joke that'll stick around for a little while.
I love it.
I hope anyway. So unless anybody else has any other style topics, that's probably a good place to wrap up. Anybody got anything else you want to talk about?
No, I just think shooting videos, just show what you're doing. Don't show the sawdust and the light coming through the window.
I think it's important, and we've talked about this in the inspiration episode, but inspiration is a direct influence on style. And just allow yourself to be inspired by, if you're a woodworker, allow yourself to be inspired by architecture, because that plays into your woodworking, which then influences your style. So just when you're not in the shop, just be open to these things, and that's definitely going to help and influence you along the way.
And also, I mean, kind of with that, as you're inspired more and you're influenced more by the stuff around you, be okay with your style, personal or video or whatever, changing. Because the more influence you get from the outside, I mean, you should evolve your style, So I know that there are some other video creators who are very worried about expanding what they do in video format, because they're worried about alienating their audience who came to them for a certain thing. And to me, that means you have a if that's an actual worry, that means your audience is probably closed-minded, not that you're doing anything wrong. Now, I think more often than not, an audience likes a person more than they like a video, and they're going to probably, for the most part, stick with you no matter, where you try to go. So all that to say, don't worry about like changing your style and growing it, and, do some things that don't work, and that's all right, but so
mow the lawn.
Yes.
That's Matthias' fault, not mine.
Jimmy, you can't blame other people for your problems.
That's right.
Because when you do that, you take the opportunity to fix those problems out of your hands and you put that in somebody else's hands. So I want you to apologize to Matthias right now.
He knows I love him. I wrote that to him. I said, in a comment, I put a link to my video. I said, this is your fault, but I still love you.
That's funny. Cool. Well, before we go, we're going to try out something new. What are we all watching? Everybody name something new that you've seen lately that you want to share with like the people listening, so we can, pass around some new stuff. David?
I am really digging the Crazy Russian Hacker. I don't get to show his stuff on the weekly wrap up because it doesn't fit into that, but I absolutely love that channel. There's just some ridiculous hacks in there. I've learned some things, and he is an entertainer. So it's Crazy Russian Hacker on YouTube.
I've been watching the last couple of days, and I got to be friendly with his team. He's not much of an internet guy, but Tips from a Shipwright. He has his friends that actually produce his videos, and it's this old guy Lou, and he's got a complicated last name. I think it's French. It's Sauzeddl. It's like Zool. I don't know, Lou Zool. He's a very, very practical, straightforward woodworker, boat builder his whole life, and he's got literally a lifetime of tips. And every one of his videos is like a segment of a giant build, and he'll like highlight how to laminate wood with epoxy, or how to get a screw or out of the wood, or how to replace. And what I love about him is he does a lot of non-traditional stuff as well. Like the way I get people beat up on me because I do something that's not traditional. He does quite a bit of that. He'll like do boat ribs out of plastic and stuff. So, that's in the world of boat building, you don't mess with tradition, but he kind of bucks the system, which is very cool because that's how you get innovation. So, and then also one more guy who deserves more than anybody a lot of promotion is Brian McAllister, who's a fantastic woodworker, BMC Woodwork on Instagram, and Learning Woodworking on YouTube. He's a fantastic woodworker.
I think it's Learn Woodwork on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, either one. But his name is Brian McAllister, and he's a super generous, kind, amazing woodworker. So
yeah, that's he definitely is. I've been watching him on Instagram for a long time, and he's very, very talented and very generous with his knowledge. So for me, I have always been a fan of Destin from Smarter Every Day, and he just has some really awesome. It's all science videos. He's an engineer, aerospace engineer. I think he's aerospace. I don't know. He's an engineer. Really smart dude. Really nice guy too. But his videos are always just really awesome. He put out one today. I haven't watched yet, but it's a collaboration with Veritasium, which is another science channel. Mm-hmm. And they put out videos at the same time. They're in different hemispheres right now, and they both synchronized videos about toilets flushing in opposite directions. And so you can watch the two videos next to each other, and it shows them going in the opposite direction. So I'm looking forward to watching that. But everybody should definitely check out Destin's stuff.
Cool.
So where can we find out about everybody here, David?
Can I promote something? Is it okay if I promote
Absolutely.
something real quick? All right. So if you go to my website, drunkenwoodworker.com, on the homepage, there'll be a link to submit a picture of a bandsaw box that you have made. So I have a book coming out later on this year, and the publishers came out with a great idea to allow users to submit photos of their bandsaw boxes to be put in the book. So if you go to my website and you make bandsaw boxes, please fill out the form, and you could get published in what's going to be a nationally distributed book. So drunkenwoodworker.com.
That's awesome.
Ooh.
Thank you.
I think I might make one. I have a really interesting idea based on what we just talked about.
Please do. You got till June 21st to do so.
Okay, cool.
Nice. That's awesome. You might give me an excuse to do one too, but I probably won't.
You can buy my swag at jimmydiresta.com, and I'm also going to promote David Welder's channel. Check out David Welder's channel. He's really kicking ass. And David is editing right now, just because we had a time crunch since I've been away. David's editing the next tips video right now in the shop. So the next edit on tips number 8 is going to be glues and epoxy. That's going to be an edit by David Welder on my channel, coming out hopefully tomorrow, maybe Friday. Thank you.
Awesome. All my stuff is at iliketomakestuff.com. I feel like I had something else to promote, but I don't know what it is, so oh well.
You do a podcast.
Hey, I do a podcast with these two guys. It's called Making It. Yeah.
But you do another podcast as well.
I do another podcast called Brain Pick, but I haven't done a new episode in a little while. That should be coming back at some point. But I want to thank our awesome people at Patreon, the Patreon supporters, Luis Gonzalez and Rick Rhodes especially, for being huge supporters. But everybody at Patreon, you guys are awesome, and we are really grateful for you and for your support of the show. Also want to thank Inventables for sponsoring this episode. You guys are also awesome. And I guess that's it for this week, and we'll see you guys next time.
That was fun.
Thank you.